So after that big perch there, we're just going to go back for the same method. Another decent dendrobina on that 14 hook like a maggot. And I'm just going to try and get this in the same spot. Again, I've often found with big perch, especially on local rivers like the Calder, when you see them, they tend to swim around in 3s and 4s of the big perch. They don't tend to be solitary, so it's always worth another chuck. Because if you didn't make too much disturbance on the first one, you've got a chance of getting another one straight after. Yeah, and keep the feed going in. As I say, I think that's the biggest perch I've ever seen, let alone caught. Proper specimen fish, that. We're into something else. What have we got here? Looks like a decent roach, this, on the worm. That's an Nidd. Don't know how these have found their way in here, but I've never had one before, so another species off the list. It's a real surprise, is that, because this is a very natural river with not a lot of commercials near it, so how on earth an Nidd's found its way in is a mystery to me. Looks right in the top lip. But we're really racking up the species list. Lovely little fish. But again, they're non-native to this country, so say they stock them in a lot of still waters because they do feed really well over winter, and they're a fantastic fighting fish to catch. And when you do catch them, you tend to catch them shallow. But how on earth one's found its way in here, I don't know. That was right in the middle of the swim, is that where the hemp's been going in. So I think we might stick at this rig a little bit longer. It didn't seem initially when I started using it that it was going to be particularly effective, but once I get the rig presented in the peg correctly, sorry, I say I've produced a perch and a decent Nidd, which is a surprise. Those will be the two biggest fish of the day, quite comfortably. So suddenly we've gone from having sort of 1.5 pounds in the net to having the best part of 4.5 pounds in 2 fish. Just get the landing net out of the way. Same again, decent pouch full of hemp. We'll get some maggots in as well. But as you saw again with that bite, I'm waiting, making sure that the fishers or something's taken the bait, whether it's snagged on the bottom or what, and then pulling nice and hard into the fish to set the hook. That float's just getting towards that area of the peg, so I'm just going to check the line, like I say, bring that bulk in front of the float and then let the worm set down in front of the trees again. Bit of activity straight away. But like I said with that Nidd as well, I've let the bite develop, so I've let the float go under as if it's dragged under and pulled solid, and then pulled nice and hard into the fish. There we go. That's a good fish on now. This could be another one of these perch. Well, what have we got here? It's just about swinging. It's a better chublet. Beautiful fish, that. So a much better stamp, more positive rig. We've just started to get through the small fish. As you can see, 3 different species again in 3 chucks. A chub, an Nidd and a big perch. But that was right down the peg under those trees. Again, I made sure when I set the hook there again, pulling nice and hard, keeping finger on the spool as well, just in case it decides to set off for the tree. But this looks like it could be the way forward. Again, never stop feeding your original swim. You never know if you might have to revert back to it. And it could well be the case that a bit of that bait's getting down and, like I say, drawing the fish up. I think the only species we've not had yet out of here are the roach and the gudgeon. So we'll try this again. Not the easiest rig to cast, and got to make sure to check the line really hard to get that secondary bulk out beyond the float like that. Mending the line. Then just focusing on letting it run down, so keeping the bail arm closed as long as I can, just in case I get an instant bite on that feed area. Like that. And that might have been a decent fish, that, because the end of the worm's not nipped. So same again, not letting any line off the spool till the float starts to tighten up, like I say, because the flow's going away from us, the float will tighten up to me, so that'll straighten all the line out, give it a little bit of a mend like that, and as you can see it's now presented perfectly. That'll get the bulk to rise up and again just sit. I'll do that again when it gets near the trees, just to make sure that the bait's presented perfectly, but crucially I'm getting that little bit of a fall that might attract a perch to have a look at it. So it's getting towards it now. Getting a few little indications. Ooh, that was a bite. Right, so I've got some feed in the peg now. I'm just going to cast back out. Okay, I'm just going to close the bail arm, get a few more grains of hemp in the peg. And making sure, as I keep saying, checking that line when it gets near the feature. You can see there, float went under, it's been pulled, and then I'm leaving it for a second. That fish has let go of it. Well, it's just nicked the end of the worm a little bit. So again, I'm just going to slip on another worm, get some more feed in the peg, and like I say, just keep repeating this process. As soon as I think there's no more better fish down there, or I think I'm doing more damage than good to the peg by running this bigger rig through, then I'll just revert back and start catching small fish again. But by the looks of things, there's one or two of these better fish around, those sort of half pound, pound chub. They seem to be now over the hemp more than anything. So again, I'm really going to attack the peg now, plenty of bait. Probably give it 2 pouchfuls of hemp and try and establish a nice big feed area that I can run this float over. Again, and keep a few maggots going in just in case we have to go back on the lighter Wagler. Right, and here we go, we're into another fish now on the worm. Feels like another one of these sort of stamped chub. And it is. So all it's required to get through to these is just going up to a 14's hook and a dendrobina. Seen a couple swirl on the surface that must be around this size. Again, by keeping up that loose feed, we've always got the chance, as I keep saying, of going back to the original plan and catching them shallow. Oh, that one's just dropped off. Right, so again, I've just slipped on the dendrobina. Big pouch full of maggots, big pouch full of hemp. As I say, really pushing the peg now. Getting a little bit better with the casting of this rig, but a couple of the chub that we've had now on this have been right up over that hemp, so they've definitely been drawn out, and I wouldn't be surprised if I start hooking bigger chub now away from the tree. Again, I'm more than happy to run up to it because I've got faith in the gear that I'm using, that if I do hook something big like that perch, I can get them out, and I wouldn't mind another one of those perch, to be honest, if I'm being a bit greedy. But again, you've got to keep the focus on keeping a nice tight line, controlling the float. Ooh, thought that could have been a good one. The fish all round definitely are responding more to the worm than they were initially. The more that I seem to be running it through, the more fish are looking to have a go at it. But I'm getting a lot more of those sort of held under bites where it's a better chub or a better dace or whatever it might be. I'm not getting quite so many of the little sort of plucks on the float, and that's, I think, definitely a case of because we've kept feeding and drawn those fish in, but equally through upping the feed and feeding a little less frequently, but feeding big pouchfuls of bait. I'm like I say, I'm trying to focus on building an area now. See, fish has just held on to that. Something as well, when a small fish grabs hold of bait, you can just pretty much pull it out of their mouths if you need to. So I will be doing that when I look at it and think that it's a small fish. I'll just sort of pull the float. If it's a positive pull under and stay down, then I'll give a good strike and try and set the hook. It's just getting into that sort of that area now. So just check the float, get that bulk shot to rise up a little bit, and the worm will just drop behind it. A few small fish having a go at it. going to do is pay out a little bit of line and then just click the bail arm over now, so it's, I can just by moving the rod tempt that float down the peg, but as soon as I get a bite I can strike into it nice and hard and I'm not giving any line at all. Like that. Couldn't have worked any better. This could be another big perch. This is a good fish. I'm thinking it's another big perch. This could turn into a red letter day if it is. As you can see there, having the bail arm over, as soon as it went, it is another perch. I don't think it's as big as the first. Or is it? You could see then I was able to strike into it straight away. Oh, it's another 2-3 pounder, that one. This is already turned into one of the best sessions I've ever had fishing wise. It's a little bit smaller that, but by any stretch that's a specimen perch again. It's hard to get my hand around them to get the hook out. I'll just have to sort that out in the net before I hold him up for camera. What a day's sport this is turning out to be. So it couldn't have worked out any better for me, that, with what I was trying to explain and then exemplify. Get that popped to one side. We'll just try and get him held up for camera. Again, another absolutely massive perch. That's probably nearer 2 pound than the first one, so it's definitely smaller, but what a fish that is. Absolutely perch city out there. So we'll get him popped in the net. But you've got to have an appreciation for these fish. See the size of the mouth on them. That's why you've got to fish big baits, nice and positive. But that was right under the trees. So I think what I'll do now is carry on, keep feeding the pegs I've been saying. But at least I've got confidence now that if that float does run down to the bottom end of the peg, there's a good chance of a few more of these big perch. But as I say, this is turning into an absolutely incredible session, this, with the variety of fish that we've had and the stamp of those 2 perch. Hopefully we can encounter maybe the odd chub or something later on. But crucially, as I say, we need to keep that bait going in, and it just goes to show by checking the line, making sure I've got everything right, plumbing the depth, fishing the correct rig, and then, like I say, when I get down towards those trees, having the bail arm over, I can set the hook and drag the fish straight out immediately. So as I say, we'll carry on and hopefully get a few more if we're lucky. Right, so after that last perch of a couple of pound there, I've just gone for my lunch. We're about 2.5 hours into the session, and already I think we've probably got, I'd say, around 7 or 8 pound of fish, of which near enough 5 or 2 perch, which is just incredible. But what I'm going to do now is just carry on using the worm method. It seems to be working really well. I can see better fish now swirling on the top, so I'll keep, as I keep saying, loose feeding that hemp and maggot really heavily. But I'm trying to now build up a bigger area of hemp on the bottom, so rather than feeding once every sort of 4 feeds with the hemp, I'm now going to feed every other feed. So again, because I've already put a couple of, well, what, 4 pouchfuls of bait in before I've just done that little piece to camera there. I'm just going to cast out and watch this float run through now. And you can see the wind's really swirling, and as I keep reiterating, this is why it's so crucial at the start of the day to assess your peg. I've made 101 mistakes before where I've gone to the peg with a preconceived idea of I'll be fishing a stick float in that peg. If I'd have done that today, I'd have spent or wasted an hour rigging up again. So by just committing to the Wagler, setting up 2 rods, like I say, I'm covering both options, really positive and light enough to catch through the water. I've been able to catch small fish when I've needed to, build a peg, and then go on to this rod here with a heavier rig, and like I say, nailed those 2 big perch and a couple of better chub and an Nidd as well. Again, like I said last time, getting towards that tree area, going to click the bail arm over, control the float, really watch. It's not as close as it was last time to the trees, but you never know, the fish might come out. It's just tripping bottom, and I'm just going to follow it down with the rod. Again, I pretty much demonstrated it perfectly with that last perch. As soon as the float went under, I was able to strike and set the hook and not give an inch of line to it. You know, which isn't quite as important with perch, Although, you know, when it's sort of £2–3, they can very easily snag you up. But if you get a chub or even a barbel on, then you'll know straight away. If you've given them ½ inch line, they've turned and they've gone into the trees. So I'm picking out slightly bigger sized dendrobinas now. Just dropping the worm in the edge. Like a decent sort of half to full pouch of hemp seed across, and a decent pouch of maggots as well. And hopefully that'll just sort of feed off the bleak a little bit. See loads of swirls on the surface. Plenty of sort of better stamped chub now as well. And I might well give it another pouch full of hemp. Because I've mentioned, we have had a couple of sort of £1/pound chub pretty much in the middle of the river like that, right over where that hemp's congregating. So that area of the peg now where that float is, it's almost like a big hole there. And then it starts to shallow up towards the trees. That looked like it was held for a second. Bit of debris. Just making sure the worm hasn't doubled over the hook point. And with the swirling winds, as I say, the casting's really difficult. But I'm happy to sort of struggle with the casting to make sure I've got the right rig when the bait does go down the peg. It's all well and good saying, you know, I've got a rig that casts really easily in the wind, but if it doesn't present the bait right to the fish, then there's no real virtue in it. In other words, I could very easily just bulk all the shot round the float and have a couple of little droppers down, but there's no way I'd get the bait down properly to the fish that I'm targeting with this rig. See, it's just getting into that area now by the tree. I'm just trying to get the line set right, or as best I can. I've closed the bail arm again. Use exactly the same process. Check the float, get that bulk to rise up, and have the worm drop back down again. So that's right in sort of the killing zone, if you like, right under the trees. I'm going to give it as much line as I can. And then just check it again. Pull it back into the channel away from the trees. I don't want to be right under the branches if I can avoid it. Then start running the float down again with the wind. As you can see, I'm using both hands to control the flow of line to the float, keeping as tight as I can without disturbing the float too much. That was probably just dragging bottom there. Again, another thing to point out, I'm not too fussed about striking the worm off when it gets to the bottom end of the peg. That was a better dace that just topped in front of us. Because again, it's sort of like when you're bread fishing, you're still feeding the peg. You know, you've pretty much given a free hook bait sample downstream to the fish. So I think we'll give a couple more runs through on this. And then start building the peg again by focusing on that we'll call it a shallow line if you like. Again, big pouchfuls of bait now. Because the wind is a little bit difficult, I'm closing the bail arm while I do feed if I'm holding the rod, just to prevent letting too much line out. But I think what we'll do now is we'll probably have another 10 or 15 casts with this. And if we hook a bonus fish again, a decent chub or a perch something, we'll, like I say, show it to camera. If not, then the next snippet you'll see is I'll go back on that shallow line and try and put a few more small fish in the net and let the bigger fish settle back down there, and hopefully again, without running the rig through, drawn back out from the tree. Right, so as you can see now, I've changed the Wagler over to a nice big 3 AAA straight peacock Wagler, a big bulk down the line, second little bulk of 3 number 9s, and then the swivel. Same hook length and everything as before, but just a lot more positive. Replumbed this for just on dead depth. And I'm just going to try a grain of hemp now, just on the off chance in case, because I want to try and catch a roach if I can. Just sort of complete the set a little bit of the species that we've had. I've had a couple of fish on the maggot, but it's been bleak and small dace. I just think with the sort of more inconspicuous bait of a grain of hemp, might just be able to get a roach. It's hard to find the right grain, it takes a bit of time. Just need to find the slot in the hemp and try and tease it round till the hook point shows. Just like so, and then push the hook into the hemp like that. As you can see, just a tiny bit of hook point showing. It's really important with this to feather the cast as much as you can, but I'm just trying this on the off chance, not like I'm going to fish it all day, but I just want to see if there's a roach down there that'll take a grain of hemp. Nice gentle cast, feather the line, and you can see as that grain goes in. I'm just going to watch now because I've got a really heavy bulk down there. I've got probably about 7 or 8 number 8s and a couple of number 9s. You can see that grain of hemp's gone straight through where the maggot before was just getting taken on the surface. A little bit of a bite there. Again, you can only really catch on the hemp when the roach are really switched onto it, and with the amount of hemp that I've lashed in, obviously there's not masses of chance of them picking out my hook bait, but we're getting little plucks there. And there we go, that's a fish on the hemp. See what this is. That's a roach. Just shows how selective it is. That's beautiful condition, about 2 or 3 ounces. And when you're fishing, say, on the maggots and casters and balling in, catching on the whip, and you fish, like I say, a fish like that, you just tend to get the dace and the chub. But bit of hemp, straight away we've had a roach. Lovely fish. You can see I was waiting for a nice positive under. The hemp will just triple on the bottom, but because it's such an inconspicuous bait and a static bait when it goes through, obviously the bleak aren't going to have a go at it so much. It's a bit time consuming to take out a decent grain, but I'll just try and find another one and see if we can replicate that. There's an half decent grain of hemp. So I'm just going to nick the kernel in the hemp with the hook and then tease it on. And that one's just opened up a little bit too much. Ideally, if you're going to spend time fishing hemp over the course of a day, you want to prepare your own hook hemp really. This is great as feed hemp, it's this dynamite bait stuff, but for hook hemp, I say you've got more chance of getting better quality hook bait by preparing it yourself. And that might be a video for another day, that one. Get another grain of hemp, just have the hook point showing ever so slightly. Before I cast in, I'm just going to feed some hemp and some maggots. Actually just the hemp this time, I think. You can see the seed on the hook there. I'm casting this actually downstream away from where I've been feeding the hemp, purely to keep away from the bleak. And again, usually you'll get those better roach down your peg anyway. You can see that bulk's gone in, the secondary bulk settled, the dropper's just picked up, and that grain of hemp now is just tripping along the bottom nicely. Again, it'll be a bit further away from the bulk of the hemp where it's gone down, so it's more sort of isolated. You never know, you can even catch chub on the single grain of hemp. It's just tripping bottom there nicely. Again, not something I plan to do, but I just wanted to try and catch a roach, and it just goes to show that hemp seeds are fantastic roach bait and actually quite selective. In a river like this where in front of us there's tons and tons of dace, chublets and bleak, managed to pick out a roach on the seed. Never know, there might be a big one lurking under the tree, so I'll just try running it down there. It might be the case that the roach are actually sat over that bed of hemp seed that I've put in. I think we're getting into sort of dangerous territory if we do hook a chub there with this rig. See, the hemp will tend to drop off on the retrieve much like bread, so you've got to have faith that when you've cast out, you've seen it splash, that it's still on the hook. But we'll just try another cast with it before I go back to fishing the maggot and, like I say, just trying to rebuild the peg. mean, you never know, down the line we'll try and do a video on hemp fishing. It's not something I'm particularly proficient in. There we go, fish on again. It's fighting a bit more than a bleak, this. See what it is. And there we go, another roach. Incredible how selective it is. Lovely stamp fish, these. If you're catching these in a match, be more than happy. That another sort of 3-ounce fish, gorgeous roach. I think one more chuck on the hemp and we'll see if we can get a bigger one. But as soon as I put maggot on, like I say, I'm not getting anywhere near those roach. But it's a really enjoyable session, this, like I say, trying to catch loads of different species of fish. And just by chopping and changing, seemingly everything's working to a degree. And the B560 is not the greatest hemp hook in the world. Prefer more of a long shank when I am fishing the hemp, and sort of a more sort of round bend, but it's just about doing for the time being. Try and get one more roach and then we'll probably go back to the maggot or even switch to the caster. But I'll make that decision shortly. You can see though how they're right over that hemp feed. There must be a massive bed of hemp out there, or the amount that I've fed. So they must be feeding really aggressively to pick out just an individual grain like that on the hook. There we go, another fish on the hemp. This feels like a better fish. Could be a nice roach, this. It's just swingable. Just seen a massive perch follow it in. That must have been another 2-pounder. But as you can see, that's a beautiful roach, that. It's incredible to see in that clear water how a perch, probably about 2 pound, like I say, has just followed this fish in. Again, that was straight on that hemp seed. Bulk's gone down and the fish has had it nearly straight away. So I think we'll go back to the maggot now and try and get a few more fish. Right, so a quick update now. I've decided to actually stick on the hemp for a short while. I've just had a couple of better roach, about sort of 4 or 5 ounces. So I might just stick it out for a short while before I go back to fishing the worm on the specie Wagler. Because these are a much better stamp fish than the bleak and the chub, or the small chub that I was catching on the maggot. There we go, another fish on. This feels a bit bigger. Looks like another decent roach. Really is a remarkable session, this. Again, I've fed the hemp in completely the wrong way, but how about that for a river roach? Stunning fish. Absolutely mint condition, probably never seen a hook before. I say it's not really the way to present the hemp, is this, with a straight peacock Wagler and a bulk rig, but it's very effective. Like I say, the fish must really be feeding, so that's a belting fish. We'll get him popped in the net. Again, it's just a bit time consuming to try and find the correct grain of hemp. Obviously trying to hook it's a bit fiddly with the oil content of the hemp, but it's, like I say, really rewarding. Can't believe how every fish I've hooked on the hemp has been a roach. Not a single bleak or dace or chublet. Like I say, even when the bait's got to the bottom on this rig and I've fished the maggot, we've not had roach doing that. So it just goes to show how selective hemp can be in certain instances. Again, a bit fiddly, but just making sure as soon as the hook point shows, just push the hook into the hemp so the point's just slightly exposed, and that gives you plenty of purchase on the hemp to cast. So I'm just going to swing that out, feed a pouch full of hemp, then cast back in. I must admit, catching river roach of that quality really is good fun. Again, considering the day we've already had with the size of the perch, we've caught a few decent chub, dace, one gudgeon, we've had plenty of bleak, even a rudd, an eyed, a roach rudd hybrid and some little skimmers as well. Really is remarkable. proper red letter day this. Like I say, we're only 3.5 hours into the session. There we go, another fish on. Really tiny little bite. It's fighting like another roach, this. Just going to swing as many fish as I can to hand. But you look at the stamp of that compared to the bleak and the little dace and chub we were catching, it's 2-3 times the size. So if you're in a match, it's certainly become a very viable method, this. Again, it's taking that well down, so they're not even being shy, getting popped in the net. But I certainly think if I was fishing, I could come back here quite happily and fish a stick float with hemp and tears, and I'd be confident in catching a few fish like that. Again, there's always the ever-present possibility of a chub on this. So you don't want to go fishing too fine, but again, I'm sort of fishing, like I've said, the wrong way about fishing hemp. Usually you fish through the water, strung out rigs. You can get away with decent hooks, but you need to fish lighter lines and really try and get the hook bait to imitate your loose feed falling through the water, whereas today I'm just bombing a single grain down to the bottom, but it's working. So again, just going to swing that out. Loose feed 20 or 30 grains. I say completely the wrong way of doing it traditionally. Then cast into the loose feed. But the other thing that's evident as well, I'm casting in after my loose feed and I'm not getting any indications of bleak or anything. That bait's going straight to the bottom. I suspect the bleak are pretty much ignoring the hemp. You can see lots of little indications. I think the float's far too buoyant for this style of fishing. There we go, that's another one on. This one's pulling back again. Just lost that one, it's just pulled off. That was another decent roach, that. Really is incredible the difference it makes. Again, I'm not forgetting that I'm still piling the hemp in because I do want to draw the chub up, and it won't be long before I'm back on that heavier rig for the better fish. But this is a proper mixed bag that we're building today. Again, a host of different species and all different sizes as well. I definitely think it's something we might have to look at in the future, whether it's hemp fishing on a canal or coming back onto a river and fishing the seed. Something that we haven't covered yet because, like I say, it's not a method that I'm particularly proficient in. I definitely think it's one to visit at a later date, is this. Possibly even in winter on here when the river's low and clear. It may well be worth a shot with the hemp. The average stamper roach is fantastic. Like I say, those sort of 3-4 ounce fish, you can really quickly build a weight. You never know, you might encounter one of £1 or £2 even on the hemp. I say a really gentle sort of roll cast. We're fishing such a heavy Wagler with a big bulk like this and quite a delicate hook bait comparatively. So hopefully the swan doesn't get tangled in the line. Just another bite there. It's frustrating when you do miss a bite because it takes so long to hook the hemp. But with the size and quality of the roach that I'm getting on it, I'm more than happy to try it. Like I say, while I keep getting the feed in, trying to draw those chub out from the trees. And you can see how sort of small little digs that we're getting with an insert Wagler, you'd be able to hit all of these bites. So the straight peacock Wagler isn't the right one for it. You can see it could barely pull the float under there. Feels like another decent roach. See if he's just about swingable. No. Right, so I've just got another grain of hemp on now, and I say we're probably just going to call this the last run through on the hemp and try and get one more fish. Because it's certainly upsetting the rhythm of the feeding really, because I haven't spent that much time trying to find a grain to hook. As I've said, it's completely the wrong way of fishing the hemp, this, and hopefully we'll cover it properly in more detail further down the line on a different session. I think it'd be fantastic on either the ooze or on here fishing a pole or a stick, but you can see how we're getting loads of little indications and the roach just aren't willing to hold on to the bait for any length of time. There's one on there, funnily enough. That's purely down to the crudeness of the rig. There we go, another roach on the hemp. It's like clockwork this, it's just a shame we can't catch them any quicker. Beautiful fish though. Like I say, every single one on the hemp's been a roach. That's really interesting. We'll get him popped in the keep net. I think we'll get back to what we were originally doing. I think I'll probably, I won't say go back to the maggot, I think I'll go back to fishing the worm on the specimen Wagler and just try and lash a load of bait in and try and get a few more big chub if I can. So I think because I've rested the peg, fed plenty of bait, there's every chance that those chub have moved back out again because I've not disturbed them. But judging by how many roach are down there, they must be getting through a fair quantity of this hemp, because it's pouchfuls like that I've been feeding, absolutely full. Like I say, building a really big bed of feed out there. But I think it'd be a lovely method to fish on here with the stick float and the hemp. And ideally, realistically, if you're on a lot of fish like that where they're taking the hemp willingly, if you've got tears, you can speed up the process massively of catching them. But I think we'll go back to presenting a big dendrobina on the size 14 hook on this Specie Wagler rig. Again, just dropping it in. Pouch full of hemp, pouch full of maggots, and then running it down. Right, so I'm now going to go for the last chuck of the session. We're in sort of the last 15 minutes. We're coming towards the end of our 5.5 hour stint today here on the Nidd, and it's been a fantastic session. So what I'll do is just try and get this lead downstream to where I think I might get one or two chub, and I'll give you a summary of what's gone on today while we're waiting for a bite. Just feel the lead down, then pay out just a little bit of line, probably about 4 feet, to create a little bit of bow and a little bit of slack, just to allow any decent fish that do pick up the hook bait time to get it down. Fishing double dendrobina now just to see if there's one or two better fish down there, like I say, while I run through the summary. But in terms of what's been going on since we did that little stint of the hemp, we've had about an hour after that, just sort of mixing and matching between the rigs, trying a few different bits and bats to try and get a few fish. It seems like the bigger fish have definitely moved out of the peg, and we've just sort of scratched around, caught a few sort of stamped little chub, a couple more dace, a couple more bleak, and the odd little roach. See that quiver tip's moving all the time. Just have to sit on your hands in this sort of instance and wait till the tip goes round and stays round. But we've not, like I say, not had a solid run of fish really to report. Nothing too much bigger. We've had, like I say, another couple of perch and that, but it's not been prolific. There's definitely a few fish having a look at that. It just went round and held round for a second, that. But as I was saying, I think the fish have moved off and backed off down the peg. Certainly I've tried, like I say, all the different methods towards that tree where a lot of the hemp's been going in, and the chub just haven't seemed to have turned up on the bigger fish. Equally, we've not had a barbel today, which, you know, we can't really complain with what we've caught, but it'd be nice to get one of those as well, or a proper big chub. But in terms of what we've caught, I've probably got somewhere between 7 and 10 pound of fish in the net, I'd have thought. Like I say, it's hard to judge because we've had such a mixed bag and such a variety of sizes of fish, and they've sort of come in spells. I mean, obviously the highlight of the day being those two big perch, the one that's nearly, well, probably over £3 if I had to guess, which is sort of a fish of a lifetime. But in terms of what we've caught as well with the rudd, even an Nidd as well we've had today, plenty of roach, a few dace, a few chublets, even a gudgeon as well. It's just been remarkable what we've caught. We've even had a couple of skimmers and what we think might be a silver bream. So I think it'd be fascinating, like I say, if we can get a fish to end on when we do take the net out and have a look at what we've caught. It'll be a real mixed bag. Like I say, the Nidd was a real surprise today. We've had another rudd as well, so we've had two rudd today, about sort of 4 or 5 ounces as well. But it's amazing the variety of fish that are in this peg. Again, I'm sure today, I think if I'd have really sat down and planned to do a big weight, I'd have probably done best on the whip. I think you could have done 20, 30 pound of dace and small fish on the whip here. And you can see that quiver tip's moving all the time, but I'm sort of sitting on my hands and waiting till it stays round. Let's say if I was going to do a big weight, that's what I'd have done, and then probably led it around or fished like with the specimen Wagler like I have and tried to get 1 or 2 bonus fish. I think that'd have been the way to do a really big weight, but I thought today it's much nicer to come down here, be a bit lighter, you know, just have the bait waiter and stuff around me and try a bit of rod and line fishing, because it's something we've done on here quite a bit, is the whip. So it's nice to just sort of focus on rod and line fishing, and like I say, it's produced, like I say, what I'd have to say is a fish of a lifetime in that £3 perch, and equally another one around £2, so it's been a fantastic session. I mean, like I say, the river conditions are near perfect. So that quiver tip's still moving. So as I said, I think around £10 might be in the net, something like that, but in terms of the day that we've had with the number of species, the different methods we've caught on, and the size of some of the fish that we've had, it's been fantastic. That little spell catching roach was really good on the Hemp and the Wagler, and certainly something that we'll have to revisit somewhere down the line. But I wouldn't say any one method's done the absolute best today. I think that Specie Wagler with the worms done really well. Like I say, picked out the bigger fish when we've needed to catch them. But I certainly think you could have done a good weight, 5, maybe £10 of roach on the Hemp today. It just goes to show what a fantastic bit of river it is. So I think what we'll try and do is get one more fish to end on this lead, and then when we've done that, show it to camera and then take the net up the bank and show you what we've caught. But I think you'd be surprised at the net of fish we've had today, the variety and the colours of them. Like I say, just a fantastic day's fishing, a proper red lead today. So what we'll do, I think we'll sit it out on this for another 10-15 minutes, try and get one fish to end on. And like I say, show you the bag of fish after that. Right, we've just hooked another fish now on the bomb. Not sure what it is yet. It's not pulling back too hard, it's swum upstream, but I think we'll have to call this the last one. That's taken about 5 minutes or so. What have we got here? Another perch. On a size 12, so I think we can just swing him. Lovely fish though, that. And double dendrobina, nice steady little bite. So we'll just get him unhooked, put in the net, and then we'll have a look at what we've caught, but that's another lovely fish to finish on. As you can see, probably about sort of 4 or 5 ounces. Stunning colours on him, so we'll get him slipped in the net, and let's have a look at what we've caught today. Right, so as you can see there, that's our final net of fish, probably around £10 or so. Plenty of mixed bag. You can see some lovely roach in there, a mixture of dace, chublets, 1 or 2 better chub, even a little skimmer in there as well. There's a little silver bream hiding in there, but crucially those 2 clonking perch, that one being the biggest. As you can see, an absolute specimen of a fish, that one, and another similar sort of size, about £2. But I think what we'll do, we'll get these put back. But as you can see, we've had a stonking day here on the Nidd. Not the biggest weight we could have achieved, but in terms of the quality of fish we've caught, a brilliant mixed bag and a wonderful day's fishing. So hopefully there's 1 or 2 things you can take away from today's little episode. Like I say, as always from Last Cast, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you on that next one.